registered dietitian, and today we are playing around with chocolate cake, one of my favorites. I'm not a huge chocolate fan, but for some reason this cake is so moist, so decadent. It just is one of my favorites. And if you're a chocolate cake fan, you know that they can be really high in calories for one. They use a lot of butter. They also use a lot of cocoa powder or chocolate, depending on what you are playing with, as well as a ton of sugar. So this recipe is actually using Sandy, registered dietitian, and today we are talking about cake. More importantly, chocolate cake, which is a huge fan favorite, and we're lightening it up a little bit to showcase how you can use different types of fats in some of your baked goods, and they still turn out amazing. And actually this one turns out even better than a traditional chocolate cake, in my opinion, if I'm being biased. But this actually uses olive oil in it. So it's a dark chocolate olive oil cake, and the base is cocoa powder, but again, you can add chocolate chips in here. You can play around with the different flavor varietals of chocolates, cocoa powders. I'm using a dark cocoa powder, but you can just use a traditional cocoa powder. I just like the flavor profile that dark brings out. You can get that at any grocery store. It's literally next to all the other cocoa powders, and it's labeled special dark. So cocoa powder. We have some granulated sugar. Again, you can play with your type of sugar. If you want to use coconut sugar in here, you can. Brown sugar, if you want to make it maple flavored, you can add some maple syrup in here. Or if you want to make it sugar-free, you could use some stevia in here as well. So again, adapt this recipe to you, play around with it, have fun with it. Baking can be fun. It doesn't have to be all measurements and checks and balances type thing. I like to kind of just freelance it sometimes. So let's get started. Right here I have all-purpose flour. Again, you could use a gluten-free flour in here if you wanted to, or you could play around, do half whole wheat, half all-purpose. It just changes the texture just a little bit here. So I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Into that I'm going to add my 1 cup of cocoa powder, my dark cocoa powder in here. And then all I'm going to do is add 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. You need to have salt in baking. It adds that little extra something. You will notice if you do not add the salt in here. So please add the salt. And then I also have a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So not powder, but soda in this recipe. And all I'm gonna do, instead of sifting this all with a sifter, I'm gonna use my handy dandy whisk here. I call it the lazy man method of sifting everything. It does just about the same thing. All I'm doing is mixing it till it's combined and incorporate it in here. That's it. And once you do that, I'm going to set that off to the side. I'm going to mix my wet ingredients. So I have 3/4 cup of olive oil here. This is just regular extra virgin olive oil. If you want to use light olive oil instead of extra virgin, that's fine. You're just not going to get as much of an olive oil flavor in there. Play around with it though. I've used butternut squash seed oil in here. I've used grapeseed oil. Again, play with the different types of oils depending on what you like. I just prefer the flavor of olive oil here. Also, you're not getting your saturated fats as you would in just regular butter that you'd be using, which is kind of cool. My oven's preheated. Into this mixture, I'm adding 3 whole eggs. You can add just egg whites if you want to. It just won't be as rich, which is fine. And then into this, I'm using my granulated sugar. And with that granulated sugar, I have just 1 cup. And then I'm adding 4 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Gotta have the vanilla in there. It's not baking without vanilla extract. You can leave it out, or you can add in almond extract if you prefer the flavor of almond. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is mix my wet ingredients up here just until they're incorporated, and then I'm going to add my wet into my dry. Again, simplest cake recipe ever. You do not need a mixer. You don't need anything crazy. You don't need to let your butter stand out because we're not using the butter here. Full of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. And again, if you prefer to use whole wheat flour, you could do half and half all whole wheat and half all purpose. All right, you could also add almond flour. I have almond flour in my pantry too. Play around with your almond flour. If you're making a gluten-free cake, you could mix some almond flour in there. Okay, that's That's all I'm looking for, just till it's combined. It's really nothing more than that. And then mixing my wet into my dry. I thought about adding some chocolate chips to this, but I decided not to. But you could add chocolate chips, you could add toasted nuts into here, coconut, really play around with that. I like to add different things into my baked goods. I don't know if that's weird or not. And then all I'm doing is combining this. You do not want to over mix this. Literally, it's like a brownie mix. You're just stirring until combined, and that is it. So right when all the dry ingredients just kind of suck in the wet, become one, that's what I'm looking for here. All right, we are almost there. Oh, look how dark it is. Okay, and that's it. I'm not touching it anymore. Literally, I have a pan here, before I grab my spatula, that I have prepared with parchment on the bottom. I sprayed it with non-cooking spray, and then I put flour, a very light layer of flour on there, as you can see, and then you tap it to get all the excess flour. That's going to prevent it from sticking to this, which you do not want your cake, your beautiful cake, to stick to the pan. You could easily make this a layer cake too. I'm just doing a single layer, just double the recipe if you want to do a layer cake and make this a birthday cake or a celebration cake, however you want to. This is a 9-inch round pan. This cake is perfect for that. If you want to do it into smaller pans, you could do it as well. It's almost fudgy, like a brownie kind of batter. All right, just pouring in here. My oven is preheated to 375 degrees. And then you're just going to bake it for 30 minutes or until the center is done. You can test the center by putting in a toothpick, and when that comes out clean, that is what you're looking for. I'm just spreading it evenly out and making sure there's no lump in the middle there. I just want it to bake evenly. Look at that. Beautiful. Now I'm going to put it into my preheated oven. We're going to bake it for 30 to 35 minutes. You don't want to over bake this. And then we'll be back, and we're going to put some powdered sugar on here and cut it and eat it. See you soon. Welcome back. So our cake has finished baking and has been cooling for about 2 hours, so it's completely cool. Well, at room temperature anyway. And I have some powdered sugar here and a beautiful cake pedestal, just to kind of play around with it and show you how to kind of decorate it and have fun with it. So I'm going to invert this out, because you know we put our parchment paper on the bottom. So I just want to take that off, and you can see, because we put the oil as well as the flour and the parchment, that it came out beautifully. And then you remove the parchment, which is my favorite thing to do. And then I'm just going to put it on my cake pedestal here. And if you had another layer, again, you could do layer cake out of this if you wanted to. It makes a wonderful layer cake, in my opinion. You can put some buttercream frosting, or I like 7-minute frosting. And I'm just using powdered sugar now. So literally just a little bit of powdered sugar in a strainer, in a just kind of mesh sieve here. And then all I'm doing, sprinkling on top, and that's it. Isn't that beautiful? So simple. You can put a little bit of fruit here, a little bit of mint, and you can serve it with some fresh whipped coconut if you want to. You can whip some coconut in there, coconut milk, and make some nice little whipped topping or whipped cream. It's up to you. But anyway, a lighter version of a chocolate cake using olive oil in place of your butter in there. It just gives it a different flavor, and it's super moist and rich. And we also use that dark cocoa powder in there too. But look at that. Anybody would be proud of that. And again, you didn't need any mixer or anything, just a bowl. Have fun, enjoy. Now let's eat some cake. Take care. Bye.